Hello again, everybody. Thank you for joining me. The definition of righteousness is being exactly as we ought to be. The world is not exactly as it ought to be. But in the kingdom, when we're walking in the Spirit and in righteousness, we're exactly as we ought to be. The more I get used to just sinking into the new man, the more I see the outworking of my righteousness in him. How does all this relate to my relationship to him? Well, as I fall back into him, as I sink into him, I become very reliant upon him to be my righteousness. I'm very much reliant upon him for all things, for my strength, my abilities, for grace. So as I sink back into him, I rely on him, and that develops a relationship with him. When I do that, I love the sense of authority that I get in him. I love the way I can see two kingdoms. I can see the lines drawn between the two. I feel such a command. I feel like I'm reigning in life. I feel like I'm exactly as I ought to be. Last night I was praying for somebody. I was praying for healing for somebody. They weren't there. I was praying for them on my own. And this time when I was praying, I sensed a new authority in me that I'd never sensed before. And as I was praying, I believe I did damage to the kingdom of darkness. But I could see a clear line between the two kingdoms as I was praying. I trusted that I was praying in him, as I had sunk into him before I started, and I had my awareness on him, and I'd been fellowshipping with him. But I could see a clear difference in my spirit and in my mind, actually, between the two kingdoms, the kingdom of darkness and the kingdom of light. The lines were not blurred. It was very clear. And I have to say that the enemy, I believe, was trying to make me fear as I was praying. But I sensed an authority that I'd never had before. I was finally seeing the outworking of this revelation of my righteousness in him as I prayed. I knew a depth that I think I've not known before in prayer. I was seeing in the Spirit. It was amazing. And something definitely shifted. I knew when the job was done. I knew when the difference had been made in the kingdom of darkness over that person's life. I literally stuck my finger in the face of the devil last night. I had this real depth of a sense of revelation of righteousness in him. I've prayed a lot of prayers before. I've seen a lot of answers. But there was a difference this time. And it was enjoyable. But it was that sense of authority, that sense of command, that sense of reigning with him that was the enjoyable thing about it the most. Oh, and of course the fact that the person got healed. That was obviously very enjoyable. And the whole experience probably had more of an effect upon me, upon my spirit, than I realised. Because when I awoke the next morning, I had a real sense that I had been having these dreams throughout the night. And they were powerful dreams. They were dreams of authority. There was one definite scenario that I remember where I was in a child training scenario. And another dream that I had was I was teaching, and I was using my authority in a teaching situation, in a classroom scenario. So I don't remember a lot of those dreams, but I just woke with that real sense of authority. You know, that there's so much in the spirit that we don't know what goes on, but we can if we tune in, if we choose to tune in and to see the difference in the two kingdoms and to see the kingdom that we live in, the kingdom of God. We can have such an insight into spiritual things. Knowing I'm exactly as I ought to be when I'm in the spirit has really helped me to be able to believe much more in my new creation identity. And since I've been doing this project, I'm beginning to see the two kingdoms so much more clearly. As I've been learning about the fact that righteousness is loving what is good and hating all evil, as I've been learning the difference between good and evil, between fear and love, as I've been learning about the fact that there's no balance between the two, that it really is a definite difference between the kingdom of darkness and the kingdom of light. As I've been learning that and seeing that, it's been so much easier to pull it back, to step back into the spirit when I'm out of it. I'm beginning to recognize that much more, and being able to much more quickly step back into the things of the spirit when I find myself out of it. So the basic message today is to open the eyes of our spirit, open the eyes of our imagination, and learn to see the two kingdoms and the lines drawn between the two kingdoms. One is exactly as it ought to be, and the other one is a perversion. It is a lie. It is corrupt. So I want to thank you guys for joining me once again. I want to thank you for listening, and I look forward to seeing you again next time.